welcome at the Creating PDF Files for Design Applications. And we have a lot to tell, so we are going to start immediately. The agenda. Welcome. We are going to do a little introduction, configuring your design applications. That's something that is very important before you go into the PDF creation. So let's first talk about a little bit about the color management, the GWG settings, the pre-flighting. Afterwards, we are going to definitely go live to show you all the PDF settings that you can use to create a PDF file. And afterwards, we have a lot of questions. If you have questions, just place them in the chat box, or when we are going to answer them as soon as possible. A short introduction. It is my colleague Koen and I that are doing the presentation. Koen is applied by Igepa and Sagam. He started as a service engineer for Macintosh and graphical systems and for workflow solutions for Agfa, Screen, Citron. So a lot of information. He has a lot of knowledge, and he's also doing a lot of training for those applications. So the right man at the right place. I am Carl. I'm working for the VIGC, and since 1 month, I've already worked for them in the past for 5 years. But I was also prepress manager, press operator, production manager. I did some continuous improvement, and I'm at the moment an innovation consultant at the VIGC. Gantt work group. I hope that you all know the Gantt work group, but we are creating best practices for publishing and packaging workflows. And since 2002, we consistently produced numerous process specifications for PDF exchange. We developed useful tools for automating process and for print and publishing. We are an international organization. With Corona, we are doing a lot of our work on screen, so not live, but normally we come together 3 times a year to discuss the PDF workflows and to see what we can adjust. The result of all those meetings is, and what we want to do is to make it easy for increasing number of professionals around the world to successfully create, process, and exchange graphic art files. And for more publications. We did a webinar last month for the non-design applications. Feel free to get the information. You can always look into that recording to see what you can use of that. We are talking a lot of the PDF standards in the Gantt work group, and mostly at the moment there are 3 workflows that are very important for us. That's the PDFX 1A, the PDFX 3, and the PDFX 4 applications. And feel free, if you want to know more about those PDF standards, 12th January, David van Andriessen and Chris Blaze are going to give you an information over the difference between those 3 applications and why should you use one of these PDF standards to create your PDF. What we first want to discuss with you is a pre-flight controlling, for controlling the data. And you can configure that for the design applications. How should you configure your color management settings? That is something that is very important. Before you create your PDF files, your color management settings should be okay. The best way to deal with that is to do that in Adobe Bridge, because if you use Adobe Bridge, all your applications like InDesign or Photoshop and Illustrator are getting those information, and all your applications use the same settings. So the best way to deal with it is to use Adobe Bridge. How should you do that? So by the Adobe Bridge, go to color settings, and in those color settings you can apply the correct settings. So here you see a lot of those information. You see one side that you can see here is that all your applications are not synchronized, meaning that Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign are configured differently. So if you use the bridge to set your application, normally that should come clear for all. by application, but that's, like I said, not the correct way. But let's assume that you can use the Europe Prepress 3 application. You see that all the settings for RGB, CMYK, gray, and spot are made correct in the correct way, and that's over all your applications. But if you go into the application, let's see if we go to InDesign, and you go to the files, edit, color settings. There's also a GWG standard that you can use to set your settings. To get those settings, just go to our to the website of the Ghent workgroup, and you can find those settings over here. Once you used the settings, downloaded those settings, they are here in your setting panel, and you can choose them. All the settings are coming correct, like we suggest in the GWG workgroup. I need to mention one item. At the moment, it is ISO-coated V2 300% that we chose. This is just an indication that we are giving there, but you can also use the newest standard here to set all your applications correct. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Sorry. Now, this is if you load those application settings on our website, you can see all the information. We have a document that that gives you information about how you should set your applications. So feel free to download these. I think that afterwards we are going to send you the links to those settings, to those application files. Yeah, that's something that I said, to download, the install, and so on. If you want to download, you can use them over here. It's on our website, but let's send out the settings also. Keep in mind that you can see on our website the different application settings. You can also have the information concerning the digital print, the sign and display, and also for the commercial print. These are the application files, and for Adobe Acrobat, InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, and later on also you have the information for Quark, Express, and Focus, Pit Stop, and also for a PDF toolbox, the Colors toolbox. This on the Colors and the Focus digital cut sheet profiles that you can download over there. For the sign and display, you see here you have the Ghent Workgroup 2015, the GWG 1.4, the GWG digital cut sheet, and the GWG sign and display. Very interesting and also very useful to use, because once you use those items, it is going to give you a lot of information about your pre-flight, about everything you should know about those pre-flight files. The documentation is very good. One side that is very important, let's go back one time to the application InDesign. Okay. One important item that I want to mention is underneath your screen, you see those 3 arrows. You can also work with live pre-flight profiles. And what can you see? So if you go to live pre-flight, you can see what pre-file you use, and normally you can also use the Ghent Workgroup pre-flight here. That's going to give you some information concerning the mistake that you have in your file, or errors that you have in your file before creation of your PDF file. Keep in mind, not all settings are already there to do a very correct pre-flight, meaning the resolution of your illustration is verified. Also, the link to your illustration is also verified, but the version that you have used, or the format that you have chosen for your PDF file is something that you cannot check here because the PDF is not created at the moment. So that's why you also need a pre-flight after the creation of your PDF file. So for the InDesign settings, just go to the link and download them. These are the way to define also the file with your presets, but that is something that Koen is going to show you in the live pre-flight. The Adobe presets define, meaning that you can make your choice over here about what kind of PDF you want to use to create your PDF file. But I'm going to go very fast around for this one because that is something that Koen is going to show you live on the screen. It is better, I think, that Koen is taking over the presentation right now because he is going to do the presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Show my screen. I hope everybody's seen my screen now.
Yes, correct.
I will go quickly back to a setting where we were talking about. So we put it in the presentation, the possibility to download, how you can download it. I will show it to you live later on. Also, maybe interesting to know how you should set the preference, how you should configure the file to pre-flight. So you have to go to Window, Outputs, and there on the right side you see the bottom pre-flight. I put it in the presentation so it can be afterwards checked piece by piece or step by step. And then you have to click on before. There we have a symbol which has 3 lines in the bottom. You click on this one and then you can load the pre-flighting or the Gantt workgroup pre-flight profile for InDesign. This is not the one for your Acrobat and your InFocus pit stop. This is one only for in InDesign, so it can control your file, as Carl already mentioned, that he can give the errors. Then you get this one. I downloaded the one for the Gantt workgroup sheet spot version to do. We also added some screenshots. I can't give it to you live because on my system I don't have a Quark Express installed, but I did it by another computer. We put it also in the presentation, the settings for Quark Express, because it can be useful for guys, and it still is in the market, Quark Express, so it's used by some people. That's why we wanted to give you also this information in our presentation. So you have to go to Edit. On the bottom in Quark Express, you see their output styles. When selecting that, you arrive in this screen where you can see on the bottom there's a button which can be chosen as import, or you can do edit and duplicate if you want to create one your own, but it's better to use our settings because these settings are verified and checked by a lot of people. So you do import, you go to where you have saved when you downloaded the settings, that file. It's an XML file for Quark Express that you have to select. You just click on open and it automatically, or you can do it multiple times for the different versions of the Gantt workgroup 2015 settings. I will talk later in the presentation live with InDesign about these differences a little bit shortly, because that is one main thing. Maybe David and our other colleague will be presenting in the standards. So if you do export as a PDF, then it's asked for the setting, so you can give it the name. sorry, it's a Dutch name. I give Benelux, but you can do it's a selection by PDF style on the bottom, and you choose the one which is according your system or demanded by your system. So these you see there are CMYK settings with spot that I chose for a resolution of 250 pixels per inch, and also which can have layers. So it's in more or less to be outputted for digital printing. As already Carol said, you can download also Preflight Settings for the digital cut sheet versions. So then you get this possibility, and if you want, there's a button options in which you can have a lot of settings. You can adapt or change or specify. Let's say here we can include blank pages, which is not the PDFX4 standard, but you can do it like that. Embed thumbnails, which is sometimes asked, especially for workflows, because it's a lot of fun. A lot of them are faster to reproduce because they have already a thumbnail. Otherwise, it's generated on the fly in the workflow system. Hyperlinks, these settings are more or less if you want to create an interactive PDF, which is not the one we talking about today, but it's just to mention. Compression, the compression settings, the downsampling. We keep the resolution as it is. We don't do any downsampling. If you have problems with that, you can, but most systems are fast enough and powerful enough today to reproduce that. You see also composite, we are creating not a separate file for each color. We make a composite file with the setup for that we accept even as RGB. The fonts will be downloaded automatically. Here you can do some registration marks if you want to have bleed marks, but normally with the center marks we have enough. Bleed, you see, you can use the bleed as in the creation, but in most cases we add there, let's say 2 or 3, normally 3 millimeters in it. But if you want to, if you create your job in Quark Express, even in InDesign, please select already the bleed settings for that when you create it. That's the best way to do it, so you don't forget it selecting it when you're exporting a PDF.
Excuse me, Koen.
Oh, yes.
One
Sorry.
question that is very important. That is, what Quark Express versions can your PDF settings be important to? That is something that's very important for what you are.
These versions. It's the, I don't know by heart. Is it 2019 the latest now? There's 2015 one. These one can be used. Okay. For the 2015 version. Transparency, okay, we accept transparency. We don't do any flattening. We let transparency in our file. This is a preference setting. And you see here also when you use layers, which layers you can mark, which layers will have to go or can go in your PDF. I will explain a little bit with InDesign more why we should do that. And it can be very useful. At the end, we have the summary for all the settings, and this is a little bit description what you all chose. So now I have to switch to my InDesign and my system, so I can give you live the information. So first of all, if you go to the website gwg.org, yep. As you see directly, we have the possibility to go with here. You see here, printers and publisher can download application settings. You can go by that way, or you can select also in the bottom here. Okay, it comes a little bit afterwards. So here you see the settings, or you can, when I go back, directly go on the bottom and you see here the button application settings, which can be useful to know that you can easily go in there to do. There you have the Gantt Workgroup 2015 settings for Acrobat, InDesign, Illustrator. They're all about the same. And if you want to download it, just push the button. Yep. If you want to have more information, you can look into here, and there's a whole description which you want to have for that application. It's by application on that. It's not the description from our settings. It's just some information of the application itself. So if you're going to download, there's a question which can be made. Yes, I want to please continue and keep me informed. And you just have to put your email, your name in your email. Why? So we can track a little bit how many people are really downloading the settings. It's just for information for us. We don't do anything. We don't use it for personal purposes. We only use it to know how many people downloaded our settings. So I already did that. I downloaded them, and I go to my screen with downloads. And I have here the Gantt Workgroup Adobe Illustrator download settings. So when you download the settings, you receive, let's say, a folder. It's a zip file which you can decompress. Here you see the color setting. So that is important, as Carl already mentioned. You can load them by bridge if you want them. Here you see the documentation, which was also in the let's say in the presentation, where you can go from okay to page 6 and how you can install it. It's a very useful documentation, which I will do now live, but it explains also a little bit also about the differences from those settings. So I must say it's very complete. Here we see the different export settings, which maybe you guys already noticed that some of them have CMYK, some of them have CMYK plus RGB, some of them have CMYK, RGB, and also layers. And also there's 2 versions of a resolution. Why we did that? There are still some companies we don't accept RGB. That's why if you choose one of those 2 settings, the 250 and 350, it means that InDesign will convert, if you export from InDesign, for instance, will convert your RGB images to CMYK. Here it's the same, but only we accept also that you use layers. For instance, why we should do that? We can use it with a document and use a die cut line that we draw in our InDesign or imported by Illustrator into InDesign in a different layer. So it can be used to be cut out later on automatically on other systems. That's why layering is so important, to do processing step information to put like on a layer. So if you look here to CMYK plus RGB, frankly, in the commercial printing, those are now the standards, which means that RGB is accepted, that the color conversion is done by the workflow systems, and also or by the digital printing systems to reproduce. If you want to have all of them, then there's also the settings CMYK, RGB plus layers that you can have. So these settings can be downloaded. I can go to, as Carl said, to Bridge. I'm now here with color settings. So if you go to edit, you can have here, I'm sorry, you can go into your settings here. Wait, yep, color settings is grayed out because it's already open. Color settings here, and then if you want to load them, there's a possibility to do saved. You see here the saved file, and you go to where you downloaded this document, Gantt Workgroup to CMYK. So if you go to there to the downloads, and I have to look into there, and I have here the setting, I can choose this one, and I do to be added in the system. This is important that you do that if you want to follow them, but as also Carl already mentioned, there are some people who are already using Fogra 51 and 52, and also 54 settings to be in their color management system. So that you can do by this way, and the easiest way is now that I can have the possibility to say, okay, I do apply for this one, and it's synchronized to all my software for Photoshop, for Illustrator, for InDesign, and for my Acrobat. So I do it more or less when installing that way. As Carl already also said, you can do it in your system self. You can go to your color settings and do it manually here, or doing by loads and choose here the settings, your color settings, as already shown before. So I can go there and I do color settings and I choose this one. I said okay, open it, and it will be set like that. You see ISO-colored V2 300 with sRGB as profile for RGB. So we can do it like that way. So this is your choice. The only thing why it's not synchronized with my file, if you do it by bridge, it's better you do it apply by bridge. You stop all your applications as Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, and reboot them, and the application and the settings will be accepted. Okay, now we will go over to my InDesign screen and said, okay, go. If you want to import Adobe PDF presets, you go to Define and you go Load. Just go to your downloads here, or to my downloads in where you saved your settings, and you can go Export Presets, and I can select which one I want to do. The only question sometimes we get, you can't do it all in once. You have to do it one by one. So a lot of some people think there's something going wrong. No, there's not going wrong. You have to do it piece by piece, step by step. In that case, but only it's only for once that you have to do it. Pay attention if you have already one inside it. You see there's a mark 1, so please do delete then this one, so you can't have any mixed settings in that case. Okay, if I have loaded them, I can here you see in my job there's 2 arrows pre-flighted, as Carl already mentioned. Here you can go define profiles. You can select these 3 bottoms, load the profile, and back go again to the again workgroup settings, and to load them, to download. If you downloaded them, you can go to these settings. I think it's with no, it's not in documentation. I don't have it in here. But if I load it here manually, you see here I have the Gantt Workgroup 3.0, Gantt Workgroup Sheet Spot 2015 loaded. There's some marks, what is all controlled, what is all checked in there. Yeah, link, missing link. But also, as Carl already said, this is not the same pre-flight as you do with the PDF file. This is more or less so in the creation that you do everything in order so you can produce a good PDF. Or you can export, and your file of InDesign is in order to be reproduced. So if I go to the arrows, I can see which pre-flight panel he will give me. Okay, on page 14 and page 15 there's a text frame with an overflow of text, as you see here. So I can solve that, or if I accept that as a setting, I can drag here now a little bit. So I have here conversion, go to the next one in that card and do it like that, or change from from font to adapt it, maybe a little bit smaller, so I don't have any problems in that cases. So this is a possibility. These are the settings you can follow by the pre-flight to adapt your information a little bit smaller. Yeah, it's okay. We'll take 14. There's no problem on that. Okay, if I created my file and my file is here, I get here no errors. It could be a good guidance so you can export your file. I go now to export my PDF. Pay attention, guys. You have a possibility here to Adobe PDF print. Some people say, oh, I have two Adobe PDF exports. This, as mentioned, is interactive. This is, for instance, if you now want to send a Christmas card and you create it, you put some music in there in your layout, in your InDesign, you can create a PDF. And so a guy opens this PDF and Merry Christmas, this music is maybe playing. So these are more interactive things. We are looking for print to save my file. Go, okay, I will do now version 1. Okay, I will save it. Then I get my settings here, the presentation, which one I want to use. So you see when I downloaded in, the one I downloaded are in here. As already said before, why you should use layers? Well, if I go now to my creation here, I have here a second layer, which could be a layer in which there is maybe a die cut or maybe a second language. It can even be a language in which you said maybe this one is English, and the second one is in a foreign other language. And my layer 1 is, for instance, used for my complete creation of my document. So these things you can easily add layers, and you said, for instance, I can add die cut now, okay, and maybe draw a line here, an ellipse, say, okay, this should be cut off in that part, in that case, okay, no filling. So I don't want any fill here, so none. And I can have a line, I can draw a line, you can use a line, but this one should be in die cut, not in that part, okay. Now this part is in there. So if I now export back again, I will save my PDF for print. I do save. Okay, I will mark here V2, for instance, okay. Yep. Then you see here what's in the general setting when I ask CMYK, RGB, and also layers. You will see PDF X4, Acrobat PDF 1.6 minimum, and I have here the possibility to embed the thumbnails and also which layers should be inside my PDF. So here we can choose all layers, just visible, so we can play with the visibility here to ask which layer can be added or not. The setting for compression, here you see when it's go over 700, we do a downsampling, because 350 is enough, but we don't do it for every resolution 351. So that's why we put the limit to 700. Marks and bleed. So here you see use the bleed of the job. Here you see there's bleed in there, which is 3 millimeter. I can deselect that and give it manually a number 2, but frankly, pay attention, guys. If no bleed is created, what you fill in here doesn't change your file. That's important. Output, with output you see here, why if we accept CMYK plus RGB, you see no color conversion, but what is added, the let's say the color setting for which setting we are exporting, is as output intent added in the file. So automatically, if you open it in Acrobat afterwards and it's shown on the screen, he will use this one to present you how it should be shown in CMYK. So we don't do color conversion. If I select now the only CMYK version, you will see that we still do convert to destination, preserve numbers, and we do here according to the settings of your color management. As Carl already mentioned, there may be new settings. You see here on the bottom, I have here PSO coated V3. That's the latest settings for photograph 51, and here photograph 52 PSO uncoated. So if you use already those settings, you can select this one for as destination, or you can even put it here in the setting for the purpose to which you want to be that it will be printed, like that. So we put it as an intent over there. So in workflows, they automatically know what the intention is, and also Acrobat knows how it should be printed. We don't do any flattening anymore, though transparency is stayed in the file, and then we get the most possible security settings and summary of the whole system. So if I do now export, my file will be created in the background. You see on the right, on the right side, it's now a backup background task processing. I'm running also the latest version. I did my update here on my system, so I can't. I just downloaded also the 2021 version, so it's with this version that it's exported. If you click on that, you see here the progress bar, how this PDF is created. It's well, it's a little heavy file, but it shows it goes okay. So it's about I think 32 pages with a lot of images in there. So I will open it now with Acrobat, so I can show you guys also that it can be. I will go to open, then I got my V2 version open. Yep. And if you, as we already told, is a layered file. When I click on the layers, yeah, I can show you which layers are in there. You see my layers. I asked for all visible layers, so this can be added. You see also the marks and bleed is put automatically in a layer. So this can be used in workflows as processing steps to be done. But I think the packaging community with the webinar is full of that in there, so I won't go into detail on that part. But here I got my file. I can now use one of the pre-flight systems. I'm using now a pit stop pre-flighting, but can also be done by the one from Acrobat with the Calas PDF toolbox engine in there. So okay, close. I have to go. Okay, and I use the Gantt workgroup, for instance. I can here. I can put here Gantt CMYK 2015. We have two settings. We have the verify setting and without verify. The only difference is if you do some fixes, yes or no. You can even select them if you want to do some fixes. But now I'm only checking my file and let them run in there. So also in the PDF, you can also always have some information about the fonts which is used. So here you said, okay, ICC is based. I used RGB images with an ICC tag in there. That's why this arrow pops up. But you see, although I didn't have any error on my InDesign, this does not mean that we will have an error maybe in the pre-flight. This shows here what we have created. So you can solve that in there or say, okay, I'll accept those things to be produced. I think, Carl, I don't know if there are a lot of questions asked or are there questions? Yeah, okay.
There's one question, where to download the InDesign live proof for pre-flight profiles.
Okay, I think it is. These are. I think you have to download it separately. I downloaded them already a long time ago. Or if you want that pre-flight, maybe you send me maybe an email. That would be easier, and I send it to you. No problem. But it should be here also in the settings with InDesign. You should have the possibility to download them.
Yeah. Also, you can also find those live pre-flight VIGC workflow on the VIGC website.
Yeah,
just
that's right.
Give live pre-flight, but it's in Dutch. The profiles are UK English, but the explanation is in Dutch. On the Gantt workgroup, you can also find them, but I send out a link, but at the moment I cannot find the link, so I need to look into it. Just send us a mail to so we can provide you with the correct settings.
Yeah.
There's another question, Koen. And that's
Okay.
a very important one, I think. That is something that we discussed already today. And
Okay.
when settings will be available for PDF 2.0 and VIGC 6?
Well, as you know, they were waiting a little bit until the new versions of Adobe were sent out, so it can be provided. I think it will be, frankly, I thought it will be half 2021 will be the earliest time, because also with the corona, you have to know, meeting in live is a little bit more difficult, so it takes a little bit more time. And also we were waiting to adapt them surely for so you can produce it with your application. It has nothing. We can produce that. We can give you the information, but if you can't create the PDF 2.0, it has no sense. That's why. So I think it will be June or maybe September. It will be in that. It will be around that.
Yeah, but I think what is Koen mentioned also, I think that we should update our presentation every week. So if every year, sorry, if we have some more information concerning those settings, I think that we are going to make a webinar at the end of next year to make sure that every settings are correct and that we can supply you with the correct information to work with those PDF 2.0 files.
But I think in the beginning of January, there's one which is David van Driessen and
yes, correct.
But I think in the beginning they will talk also about PDF 2.0. So
yes, correct.
That should be give you an idea when. But I think as I know, it will be half next year.
Yeah, a very important question, and it's going to take us a while, I think. What is the difference or advantage to use export from InDesign instead print to ProScript file and process in Distiller? In which case is it better to use one of the other method?
Well, frankly, I don't like it anymore that people are printing to PostScript file. I'm sure there are people doing it to solve some problems, but you have to know when you print it to a PostScript file, there's always your transparency is flattened by the application and also by the printer you choose. This is not a good idea anymore because the new settings you see on when you look on my screen, you see the again workgroup 1v4, which were the older settings. This one we're even not using PostScript anymore, but we're flattering transparency because we created a PD 1.3. Why we don't do it anymore? It's because we want to use late binding. And what does that mean? I want to create a PDF out of my system. I'm a creator. I don't have any clue. Well, I have a clue, but suppose I don't. I'm just a creator. I create my information out of InDesign, and I want to let it print it somewhere. So I create my PDF as best as possible so it can be reproduced on multiple systems and also on multiple support. So paper, it can be vinyl, it can be something else. That's why we don't flatten anymore our things. That's why you can't print to a PostScript file, because then the flattening is already done. And now the systems in the market can flatten better your information than, frankly, InDesign or a PostScript can do it. That's why. I know sometimes people do it because they have an old system and they want to. There's a only solution to pre-print it. I can accept that, but please do not. Please use our new settings. You will be better off on that.
Yeah. I think to get more into detail here, I think PostScript is the old way to provide to translate your documents. A very good tool to use here is the test files that we have to place onto your to work onto your ripping. So if you use the test files that we have created to see if your workflow is correct with your with new PDF settings, just use the PDF test file that we have, make a post script, and also send the PDF directly to your RIP, and you are going to see the difference between those two. I think that you should upgrade and work without PostScript, because PostScript is, like Koen said, flattening, and that's always something that you can that you have to avoid, because it's always possible that you create some mistakes into your files, especially with the new settings that are possible in the application of in designer tools. Koen, another question. When I open a document in InDesign that has different color settings, I select the option to adjust the document to the current color settings and disable the previous profiles. Is this a good practice?
Normally, you should, when this is asked to convert your settings, you know, this comes with the setting here in your color settings. There's ask when opening when there's a difference, when there's a mismatch. If there's a mismatch, the ask what he should doing when opening. If you convert them, well, the best way is like you do it in Photoshop to convert from one profile to another. There's a here you can do. Wait, I have to open an image to explain it. Okay, oh, right. I don't know if I have here. I'm looking for some images, maybe. Yeah. Okay. If I do a color conversion here, so you can better here, you see convert to profile, which is asked. Yep. This goes from one profile to another. Pay attention. This passed by LAB. So it's internally also first converted to LAB and then back to which profile destination profile you use. This is better than saying, okay, forget my settings, and you can do also assign a profile if not is in there. But if you have the possibility, and you have, this is one of the questions you have here, convert to profile, but use also the profile which is embedded, which is the better way. Yeah, but as I already said, nowadays people are using sRGB or RGB to create their images, and then we don't have to convert to CMYK, for instance. So we let them RGB as they are in our system, and the conversion is afterwards done in the workflow. Hopefully that answers a little bit your question on that.
I think it was a very clear answer. Koen, I think that you have answered all the questions. So if you're thinking about some information that you need to put your workflow on a better use, just ask the question at the Ghent workgroup, and we are happy to help you with that.
We'll thank everybody to join the meeting. Hopefully this information was useful for you guys. And I want to say good evening, thank you, and stay safe.